Christopher George Latour Wallace, May 21, 1972 to March 9, 1997, better known by his stage names the Notorious B.I.G. or Biggie Smalls, was an American rapper and songwriter. Rooted in the East Coast hip-hop and gangster rap traditions, he is widely considered one of the greatest rappers of all time. Wallace became known for his distinctive, laid-back lyrical delivery, offsetting his lyrics' often grim content. His music was semi-autobiographical, telling of hardship and criminality, but also of debauchery and celebration. Wallace was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York City. In 1993, he became the first artist to sign with Sean Combs' Bad Boy Records and gained recognition for his guest appearances on other artists' singles. His debut studio album, Ready to Die, 1994, received acclaim and included the successful singles Juicy, Big Papa, and One More Chance. Ready to Die made Wallace the central figure of East Coast hip-hop and helped restore its prominence at a time when the West Coast was dominating the genre. In 1995, Wallace was named Rapper of the Year at the Billboard Music Awards, and with his protege group Junior MAFI, which included longtime friends like Lil' Kim, released the album Conspiracy. While working on his second album in 1995, Wallace became embroiled in the growing East Coast-West Coast hip-hop rivalry, including a feud with his former friend Tupac Shakur. After Shakur was murdered in a drive-by shooting in Las Vegas in September 1996, rumors circulated suggesting that Wallace might have been involved, given the two artists' feud. In March 1997, 6 months after Shakur's death, Wallace was also killed in a drive-by shooting in Los Angeles by an unknown assailant. 2 weeks later, Life After Death, 1997, was released as a posthumous double album. It debuted atop the Billboard 200, yielded the Billboard Hot 100 #1 singles, Hypnotize and Mo Money Mo Problems, and received diamond certification by the Recording Industry Association of America, RIAA. 2 more posthumous albums followed, Duets, The Final Chapter, 2005, and The King and I, with Faith Evans, 2017. Wallace's certified U.S. sales exceed 28 million copies, including 21 million albums. Rolling Stone called him the greatest rapper that ever lived, and in 2015, Billboard named him the greatest rapper of all time. The Source named him the greatest rapper of all time in its 150th issue. In 2006, MTV ranked him at number 3 on their list of the greatest MCs of all time, calling him possibly the most skillful ever on the mic. In 2020, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Life and Career, 1972 to 1990. Early life. Christopher George Latour Wallace was born at Cumberland Hospital in Brooklyn, New York on May 21, 1972. Wallace was the only child of Jamaican immigrant parents. His mother, Valletta Wallace, died 2025, was a preschool teacher, while his father, Selwyn George Latour, was a welder and politician. At the age of 5, he began attending preschool at Quincy Lexington Open Door Daycare Center, where he was already bigger than most of the other children. 3 months before Wallace's 3rd birthday, his father left the family, leaving his mother to raise him while working 2 jobs. He grew up in Brooklyn's Clinton Hill, near the border of Bedford-Stuyvesant. As a child, Wallace spent most of his time on Fulton Street, where he was introduced to drug dealing, alcoholism, and gambling. Raised as a Jehovah's Witness, Wallace attended St. Peter Claver Church in Brooklyn, graduating from the parish elementary school in 1982. He excelled in the English subject at Queen of All Saints Middle School. He attended Westinghouse High School, a public school attended by several future celebrities, including Jay-Z and Busta Rhymes. Growing up, Wallace listened to black artists like Stevie Wonder, left, and Marvin Gaye, right. While attending Westinghouse High School, Wallace weighed 91 kilograms, 201 pounds, which earned him the nickname Big. During this period, his interest in drug dealing intensified, having been influenced by the crack epidemic of the 1980s and 1990s. A friend introduced him to buying and selling marijuana when he was around the age of 12. Having grown up in a strict household, Wallace concealed the money he earned on the roof of his apartment. His mother had no idea about this. She only discovered it when he was 20 years old. Despite being an honor student, Wallace dropped out of school at the age of 16 due to his growing interest in drug dealing. In 1989, he was arrested in Brooklyn on weapons charges and sentenced to 5 years of probation. The following year, he was arrested for violating that probation. A year later, Wallace was arrested in North Carolina for dealing crack cocaine and spent 9 months in jail before making bail. Early in his life, Wallace was influenced by black artists like the Dramatics, Blue Magic, Teddy Pendergrass, Stevie Wonder, and Marvin Gaye. He was also well acquainted with the performances of Parliament Funkadelic, Earth, Wind & Fire, Kool and the Gang, and Chic. During visits to Jamaica, he was influenced by its prominent native genres, including jazz, reggae, soul, and mento. As Wallace entered adolescence, he started listening to artists like Run DMC and LL Cool J. Wallace adopted the stage name MC Quest and formed the Techniques with his two friends Michael Bynum and Hubert Sams. Wallace met Donald Harrison, a saxophonist from New Orleans, and the Techniques worked on their first songs together at Harrison's home studio. As the trio grew older, their interests shifted. Sams became focused on high school football, while Bynum lost interest in the music industry. Wallace adopted his second stage name, Biggie Smalls, from Calvin Lockhart's character in the 1975 film Let's Do It Again. 1991 to 1994. Early career and first child. After his release from jail, Wallace produced his first demo tape in 1991 called Microphone Murderer with a disc jockey named 50 Grand. Although Wallace reportedly had little ambition for the tape, local disc jockey Mr. C, known for his work with Big Daddy Kane and the Juice Crew, discovered and promoted it. Mr. C sent the tape to Matteo Capolungo, an editor at The Source magazine, who featured the track in the unsigned hype section in March 1992, a chart dedicated to showcasing promising rappers. That year, Wallace started gaining exposure. After reading the unsigned hype section, Sean Combs arranged to meet him. Combs connected Wallace to rhyme on the remix of Mary J. Blige's hit Real Love. In 1992, Wallace's girlfriend Jan Jackson became pregnant, and he was signed to Uptown Records in March by Combs. Wallace's first chance to record a solo track for Uptown Records, rather than featuring on another artist's remix, came in 1993 when Combs was creating a song for the soundtrack of the hip-hop comedy Who's the Man. The song was Party and Bullshit, produced by the Brooklyn-based Easy Mo Bee. The song was heavily inspired by When the Revolution Comes by the Last Poets, which uses sarcasm, frustration, and humor to critique young black people's lack of seriousness in the struggle for equality. In the track, vocalist Umar bin Hassan delivers lines like, "Niggas will party and bullshit, and party and bullshit." Development on Wallace's first album began at Kapaluongo's apartment in late 1992. Wallace appeared on Heavy D and the Boys' 1992 album Blue Funk on the track A Bunch of Niggas. In July 1993, a month before Wallace's first child was born, Combs was fired from Uptown Records by his mentor Andre Harrell, resulting in the loss of access to the songs recorded at that time. Jan gave birth to Tiana Dream Wallace on August 8, 1993. Wallace promised his daughter everything she wanted, believing that if he had experienced the same support in his own childhood, he would have graduated at the top of his class. Soon after he was fired, Combs started his own record, Bad Boy Records, and promptly signed Wallace to the label. Combs discovered that Wallace continued dealing drugs and insisted he stop. When Wallace found out the name Biggie Smalls was already taken, he adopted a new moniker, settling on the Notorious B.I.G. Wallace explained that the acronym B.I.G. stood for Business Instead of Game. Combs and Clive Davis, then CEO of Arista Records, reached an agreement in which Davis provided Combs with a $1.5 million advance and full creative control. Combs promptly used the money to repurchase the tracks recorded for Wallace's album from Harrell. Around this time, Wallace formed a friendship with fellow rapper Tupac Shakur in Los Angeles. Lil Cease remembered the two as being very close, often traveling together when they were not working. He noted that Wallace frequently visited Shakur's home, and they spent time together whenever Shakur was in California or Washington, D.C. Yukmuth, an Oakland MC, stated that Wallace's style was influenced by Shakur. The Real Love remix single was followed by a remix of a Mary J. Blige song, What's the 411? Wallace's success continued, though to a lesser extent, with remixes of Nena Cherry's Buddy X and reggae artist Supercat's Dolly My Baby in 1993. In July 1994, Wallace appeared alongside LL Cool J and Busta Rhymes on a remix of Craig Mack's track Flavor in Your Ear, which reached number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100. Flavor in Your Ear reached number 1 on the rap chart for 3 consecutive weeks. 1994, Ready to Die and Marriage to Faith Evans. Faith Evans, whom Wallace married in 1994. On August 4, 1994, Wallace married R&B singer Faith Evans, whom he first met in June 1994 at a promotional photo shoot. Wallace and Mo B originally wanted Machine Gun Funk as Wallace's upcoming album's first single due to its funky, upbeat sound, but Combs preferred a smoother sound for the release. The upcoming album's first song to be released was the title track, Ready to Die, followed by Gimme the Loot, Things Done Changed, Machine Gun Funk, and Warning. Wallace had his first pop chart success as a solo artist with double-A side Juicy Unbelievable, which reached number 27 as the lead single to his debut album. Recorded at the Hit Factory between 1993 and 1994, Wallace released his debut studio album, Ready to Die, on September 13, 1994. Inspired by Snoop Dogg's bold, violent, and darkly humorous hit records, Wallace sought to create a similar style with Ready to Die, infused with an East Coast influence. Wallace originally wanted to name the album The Teflon Don, drawing inspiration from John Gotti, who was then making headlines for his ability to avoid legal troubles. Combs disagreed, arguing that the title should make an impact in a way that would represent for the masses. Wallace agreed to follow Combs' decision, and the two conceived the name Ready to Die. Ready to Die reached number 15 on the Billboard 200 chart, sold 500,000 copies in its first week, and was certified 4 times platinum. The album shifted attention back to East Coast hip-hop at a time when West Coast hip-hop dominated U.S. charts. It received positive reviews upon release and has been widely praised in retrospect. In addition to Juicy, the album produced 2 other hit singles, the platinum-selling Big Papa, which topped the U.S. rap chart, and One More Chance, which sold 1 million copies in 1995, the year of its release. Busta Rhymes recalled seeing Wallace handing out copies of Ready to Die from his home, which the former saw as his way of marketing himself. In 1994, Wallace formed the hip-hop group Junior MAFIA, which included many of his childhood friends, such as Lil Kim and Lil Cease. The name is a backronym for Masters at Finding Intelligent Attitudes. Wallace also befriended basketball player Shaquille O'Neal. O'Neal said they were introduced during a listening session for Gimme the Loot. Wallace mentioned him in the lyrics and attracted O'Neal to his music. O'Neal requested a collaboration with Wallace, which resulted in the song You Can't Stop the Rain. According to Combs, Wallace would not collaborate with anybody he didn't really respect, and that Wallace paid O'Neal his respect by shouting him out. In 2015, Daz Dillinger, a frequent collaborator with Shakur, said that he and Wallace were cool, with Wallace traveling to meet him to smoke cannabis and record 2 songs. 1995. Collaboration with Michael Jackson, Junior MAFIA Success, and Coastal Feud. Junior MAFIA began working on their debut studio album in 1994. On August 29, 1995, Conspiracy was released via Undies Recordings. It achieved gold certification and sold over 500,000 copies in the U.S. The first single, Player's Anthem, features Wallace, Lil Kim, and Lil Cease, and was produced by Clark Kent. The third single, Get Money, a Battle of the Sexes track featuring Wallace and Lil Kim, became their most popular song. Players Anthem and Get Money charted within the top 20 in the U.S. and also earned gold and platinum status respectively. Wallace continued collaborating with R&B artists, working with groups like 112 on Only You and Total on Can't You See, both of which reached the top 20 on the Hot 100. By the end of the year, Wallace had become the top-selling male solo artist and rapper on both the U.S. pop and R&B charts. In July 1995, Wallace appeared on the cover of The Source with the caption, "The King of New York Takes Over," a nod to his alias Frank White, inspired by the character from the 1990 film King of New York. At the Source Awards in August 1995, he won Best New Artist, Lyricist of the Year, and Live Performer of the Year, while his debut album was named Album of the Year. He was also honored as Rap Artist of the Year at the Billboard Awards. In 1995, Wallace became embroiled in the East Coast-West Coast hip-hop rivalry, which involved his now former friend, Shakur. In an April 1995 interview with Vibe, while serving time in Clinton Correctional Facility, Shakur accused Harrell, Combs, and Wallace of having prior knowledge of a robbery on November 30, 1994, during which he was shot 5 times and lost thousands of dollars worth of jewelry. They denied any involvement. Wallace stated, "I had nothing to do with that. It just happened to be a coincidence that he was in the studio. He couldn't really say who really had something to do with it at the time, so he just kind of leaned the blame on me." In 2012, Dexter Isaac, who was serving a life sentence for unrelated crimes, claimed responsibility for the attack on Shakur that night, stating that the robbery was orchestrated by entertainment executive and former drug trafficker James Rosemond. After his release from prison, Shakur signed with Death Row Records in October 1995. This made Bad Boy Records and Death Row business rivals, further escalating the conflict between Shakur and Wallace. In October 1995, Wallace revealed that he still had not received any earnings from Ready to Die, despite the album having sold 2 million copies at the time. With each CD priced at $15, equivalent to $33 in 2025, the album should have generated approximately $30 million, $57 million in 2025. Amid the rivalry between Wallace and Shakur, many speculated that Who Shot Ya, released in late February 1995 as a secondary B-side to Big Papa, was intended to taunt Shakur. According to Lil Cease, the song was not intended to be a comment on the shooting, stating, "He knew that song wasn't about him, he was around at that time." Lil Cease stated that the song was an introduction for Mary J. Blige's second album. However, the shit was too hard, so Big kept it and said, "I'm gonna put it out." Wallace worked with Michael Jackson on His Story Continues, 1995. In June 1995, Wallace guest appeared with pop singer Michael Jackson on the album His Story Continues, providing vocals for the song This Time Around. Lil Cease claimed that when Wallace met Jackson, he was made to stay behind, with Wallace explaining that he did not trust Michael with kids, due to the 1993 child sexual abuse allegations against Jackson. The engineer John Van Nest recalled that Wallace was excited to meet Jackson and was nearly brought to tears when it happened. Wallace began recording his second studio album in late 1995, working on it over the course of 18 months in New York City, Trinidad, and Los Angeles. The recording process was disrupted by injuries, legal issues, and the publicized hip-hop feud between Wallace and Shakur. 1996, more arrests, accusations regarding Shakur's death, and second child. In 1996, Lil' Kim became pregnant with Wallace's child while the two were having an affair, but she later decided to get an abortion. Wallace also started a relationship with Charlie Baltimore, a Philadelphia native who portrayed Evans in the Get Money music video. Although Wallace shared his plans to include her in a supergroup called The Commission, she was aware that she was not the only woman in his life. On March 23, 1996, Wallace was arrested outside a Manhattan nightclub for chasing and threatening 2 fans who were asking for autographs, smashing the windows of their taxi and punching one of them. He pleaded guilty to second-degree harassment and was sentenced to 100 hours of community service. Later that year, he was arrested at his home in Teaneck, New Jersey, on drug and weapons possession charges. At the Soul Train Music Awards in 1996, One More Chance Remix was nominated for Song of the Year and received the R&B Soul or Rap Song of the Year award in the same year. In June 1996, Shakur released Hit 'Em Up, a diss track directed towards Wallace and other East Coast rappers. Shakur claimed to have had an affair with Evans, who was estranged from Wallace at the time, and accused Wallace of copying his style and image. Described as manic, Hit 'Em Up disses Wallace, Combs, and their associates, including Junior MAFIA, Evans, and Bad Boy Records. In 1996, Wallace collaborated with rising rapper Jay-Z on his debut album Reasonable Doubt, recording a duet titled Brooklyn's Finest. The track used humor to address speculation surrounding Wallace and Shakur. If Faith has twins, she'll probably have two Pacs. Get it? Two Pacs. According to Wallace, humor had always been his way of coping with hardship since elementary school, explaining, "I gotta make jokes about it. I can't be the guy running around all serious. I know so many niggas like him, so many rough, tough motherfuckers. When I heard he got shot, I was like, he'll be out in the morning, smoking some weed, drinking Hennessy or whatever. You ain't thinking he gonna die?" Wallace on Shakur's death. On September 7, 1996, Shakur was shot 4 times in a drive-by shooting in Las Vegas and died 6 days later. Because of Shakur's accusations in his records, Wallace, along with other New York rappers like Mobb Deep, Capone, and Noriega, became suspects in his murder. In a 2002 Los Angeles Times series titled Who Killed Tupac Shakur, journalist Chuck Phillips reported, based on police reports and multiple sources, that the shooting was carried out by the Southside Crips, a Compton gang, seeking revenge for a beating Shakur had allegedly inflicted earlier that day. The report also claimed that Wallace had paid for the gun used in the shooting. The night Shakur died, Wallace called Evans in tears. Evans recalled that he was in shock, and it's fair to say he was probably afraid. Wallace expressed regret over Shakur's death, but declined to attend his funeral when asked by a friend. He explained his decision by saying, "Shakur made my life miserable. He told lies, fucked with my marriage, and turned my fans against me." The Los Angeles Times editor Mark Duvoisin stated that Phillips' story has withstood all challenges to its accuracy and remains the definitive account of the Shakur slaying. Wallace's family denied the report, providing documents that claimed he was in New Jersey at the time of the incident. The New York Times called the documents inconclusive, stating, "The pages purport to be 3 computer printouts from Daddy's house, indicating that Wallace was in the studio recording a song called Nasty Boy on the night Shakur was shot. They indicate that Wallace wrote half the session, was in and out / sat around, and laid down a ref, shorthand for a reference vocal, the equivalent of a first take. But nothing indicates when the documents were created." And Louis Alfred, the recording engineer listed on the sheets, said in an interview that he remembered recording the song with Wallace in a late-night session, not during the day. He could not recall the date of the session, but said it was likely not the night Shakur was shot. "We would have heard about it," Mr. Alfred said. Wayne Barrow, Wallace's co-manager at the time, stated that Wallace was recording the track Nasty Girl on the night Shakur was shot. Shortly after Shakur's death, Wallace met with Snoop Dogg, who claimed he never hated Shakur. During the recording of his second album, Life After Death, Wallace and Lil Cease were arrested for public marijuana use, resulting in the repossession of their car. Wallace opted to rent a Chevrolet Lumina rental SUV, despite Lil Cease's concerns about its faulty brakes. The car was ultimately crashed into a rail, breaking Wallace's left leg and fracturing Lil Cease's jaw. Wallace spent months in the hospital, initially using a wheelchair, later relying on a cane, which he used until his death, and undergoing therapy. Despite his hospitalization, he continued working on the album, referencing the accident in Long Kiss Goodnight with the line, "Ya still tickle me, I used to be as strong as Rippleby till Lil Cease crippled me." On October 29, 1996, Evans gave birth to Wallace's son, Christopher C.J. Wallace Jr. Around this time, Wallace began recording the songs for Life After Death. The following month, junior MAFI member Lil' Kim released her debut album Hardcore. Lil' Kim described herself as Wallace's biggest fan and referred to herself as his pride and joy. In a 2012 interview, Lil' Kim revealed that Wallace stopped her from recording a remix of Jodeci's single Love You for Life by locking her in a room. According to Kim, Wallace told her she was not gonna go do no song with them, likely due to Jodeci's association with Shakur and Death Row Records. While working on Life After Death, Wallace began to lose weight, losing around 30 pounds, 14 kilograms, according to his mother. 1997. Conclusion of development on Life After Death. I called this album Life After Death because when I was writing things like fuck the world, fuck my mom and my girl, there was nothing but anger coming out about everything, about having to go out to sell crack, to hustle for a living. Nothing but anger. But now I can't do that anymore. Wallace, on the album's title, in January 1997, Wallace was ordered to pay $41,000 in damages following an incident involving a friend of a concert promoter who claimed Wallace and his entourage beat him following a dispute in May 1995. He faced criminal assault charges for the incident, which remains unresolved, but all robbery charges were dropped. Following the events, Wallace spoke of a desire to focus on his peace of mind and his family and friends. The development of Life After Death concluded in January 1997 for a March 25th release. In February 1997, Wallace traveled to California to promote Life After Death. On the morning of February 16th, Wallace began preparations for the day's work. He had arrived in Los Angeles 2 weeks before the Soul Train Music Awards to film the video for his album's lead single, Hypnotize. The 3-day shoot, with a budget of $700,000, was both a promotional effort and a statement of his return to the music scene. Hypnotize was officially released on March 4, 1997. It debuted at number 2 in the U.S. and later reached number 1. After production of the video had ended, Wallace recorded his vocals for Combs' upcoming album, Hell Up in Harlem. Following the former's death, the album was retitled No Way Out. He was posthumously featured on the tracks Victory and It's All About the Benjamins. Murder main article. Murder of the Notorious B.I.G. Wallace in the iconic King of New York photograph by Baron Claiborne, taken 3 days before his death in March 1997. On March 8, 1997, Wallace attended a Soul Train Awards after-party hosted by Vibe and Quest Records at the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles, California. Guests included Evans, Aaliyah, and members of the Bloods and Crips gangs. With over 2,000 people overcrowding the venue, fire marshals shut it down at 12:35 a.m. on March 9th. After taking a few photos, Wallace and his crew headed downstairs to the Chevrolet Suburbans they had rented from Budget Rent-A-Car. He traveled in the front passenger seat alongside associates Damian D-Rock Butler, Lil Cease, and driver Gregory G-Money Young. Combs traveled in the other Suburban with 3 bodyguards. The 2 trucks were trailed by a Chevrolet Blazer carrying Bad Boy Director of Security Paul Offord. Soon after Wallace's Suburban stopped at the red light, a black Chevrolet Impala pulled up to the right side of the car Wallace was in. The Impala's driver, described as an unidentified African-American man in a blue suit and bow tie, rolled down his window, drew a 9mm blue steel pistol, and fired at Wallace's vehicle. Wallace was struck by 4 bullets. His entourage rushed him to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where an emergency thoracotomy was performed, but he was pronounced dead at 1:15 a.m. He was 24 years old. An autopsy report, released 15 years after his death, revealed that only the final shot proved fatal. The bullet entered through his right hip, damaging his colon, liver, heart, and left lung before coming to rest in his left shoulder. Wallace's funeral was held at the Frank E. Campbell Funeral Chapel in Manhattan on March 18th. There were more than 350 mourners at the funeral, including Lil Cease, Queen Latifah, Flavor Flav, Mary J. Blige, Lil Kim, Run DMC, DJ Kool Herc, Busta Rhymes, Salt and Peppa, DJ Spinderella, Foxy Brown, and Sister Souljah. David Dinkins and Clive Davis also attended the funeral. After the funeral, his body was cremated at the Fresh Pond Crematory in Fresh Pond, Queens, and the ashes were given to his family. Posthumous releases. 16 days after his death, Wallace's second studio album, Life After Death, was released on March 25, 1997. The album achieved 4-time platinum certification and became the highest-selling release of the year, tying with MC Hammer's Please Hammer Don't Hurt 'Em 1990 as one of the best-selling rap albums of all time at release. Life After Death debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200. It had briefly appeared earlier at number 176 due to street date violations. The follow-up single of Hypnotize, Mo Money Mo Problems, featuring Combs and Mace, became Wallace's biggest chart success, reaching number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, making him the first artist to achieve 2 posthumous number 1 singles. The third single, Sky's the Limit, featuring the band 112, featured a Spike Jonze-directed video with children portraying Wallace and his contemporaries, including Combs, Lil' Kim, and Busta Rhymes. In December 1997, Spin named Wallace Artist of the Year, with Hypnotize as Single of the Year. Wallace featured on 5 tracks on Combs, pictured in 2006, No Way Out album. In mid-1997, Combs released his debut album, No Way Out, which featured Wallace on 5 tracks, including the single Victory. The album's second single, I'll Be Missing You, featuring Combs, Evans, and 112, was dedicated to Wallace's memory and became a worldwide chart topper. At the 1998 Grammy Awards, Life After Death and its first 2 singles, Hypnotize and Mo Money Mo Problems, received nominations in the rap category. Combs' No Way Out won Best Rap Album, while I'll Be Missing You won Best Rap Performance by a Duo or Group, where Wallace's Mo Money Mo Problems was also nominated. In December 1999, Bad Boy Records released Born Again, an album featuring previously unreleased material from Wallace mixed with new guest appearances from artists he had not collaborated with during his lifetime, including Eminem and Missy Elliott. It spawned 2 singles, Dead Wrong and Notorious B.I.G., released on October 26, 1999, and December 11, 1999, respectively. Notorious B.I.G. peaked at number 82 on the Billboard Hot 100. Wallace featured on Michael Jackson's album Invincible, providing lead vocals for the track Unbreakable, which was released on October 30, 2001. Wallace's vocals appeared on Ashanti's Unfoolish in 2002, and the track Runnin', Dying to Live with Shakur in 2003. Duets, The Final Chapter, a remix album, was released on December 20, 2005, which spawned the singles Nasty Girl and Spit Your Game. Nasty Girl features Combs, Nelly, Jagged Edge, and Avery Storm, and Spit Your Game includes guest appearances from Crazy Bone, Twista, and 8 Ball and MJG. The album peaked at number 3 on Billboard 200, while Nasty Girl peaked at number 44 on the Hot 100. Combs and Valletta both stated Duets, The Final Chapter, would be the last album primarily featuring new material. A compilation album, Greatest Hits, was released on March 6, 2007, 3 days before the 10th anniversary of Wallace's death. It included tracks like Juicy and Big Papa, but was criticized by AllMusic for not containing hits like Mo Money Mo Problems and Going Back to Cali. The album debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200 chart. On May 19, 2017, The King and I, a duet album featuring Evans and Wallace, was released, showcasing mostly unreleased tracks. The album peaked at number 65 on the Billboard 200. Artistry vocals, Only You remix. Duration 31 seconds, .031. Wallace, accompanied by ad-libs from Sean Combs, uses onomatopoeic vocables and multisyllabic rhymes on his 1995 collaboration with R&B group 112. Niggas Bleed. Duration 28 seconds. 028 Wallace tells vivid stories about his everyday life as a criminal in Brooklyn from Life After Death. Problems playing these files? See Media Help. Wallace had the vocal range of a baritone. He typically rapped in a deep tone that Rolling Stone described as a thick, jaunty grumble, which became even deeper on Life After Death. Wallace was frequently joined by Combs, who contributed ad-libs to his tracks. The Source's unsigned hype column described his style as cool, nasal, and filtered, blessing his own material. AllMusic noted Wallace's talent for layering multiple rhymes in rapid succession, while Time magazine highlighted his ability to deliver multisyllabic rhymes smoothly. Scholar Adam Crims described his rhythmic style as effusive. Wallace often used onomatopoeic sounds like at the start of tracks such as Hypnotize and Big Papa. Latif of Latyrix described Wallace as having intense and complex flows, while Onyx's Fredro Starr called him a master of the flow. Rapper Bishop Lamont praised Wallace's ability to capture all the hemispheres of the music. Wallace often employed single-line rhyme schemes to bring variety and depth to his flow. Big Daddy Kane noted that Wallace did not need an extensive vocabulary to impress. Instead, he just put his words together a slick way, and it worked well for him. Known for composing lyrics in his head rather than writing them down, Wallace occasionally deviated from his usual style. For example, he sang in a slow falsetto on Play a Hater and adapted to the rapid-fire rhyme flow of Bone Thugs-n-Harmony on Notorious Thugs. Musical style. Wallace's lyrics explored a range of themes, including mafioso narratives, Niggas Bleed, reflections on his drug-dealing past, 10 Crack Commandments, materialistic boasting, Hypnotize, humor, Just Playing, Dreams, and romantic experiences, Me and My Bitch. In 2004, Rolling Stone praised him as one of the few young male songwriters in any pop style writing credible love songs. In the book How to Rap, rapper Gorilla Black highlighted Wallace's ability to glorify the upper echelon while also making listeners feel his struggle. According to the New York Times journalist Teray, Wallace's lyrics mixed autobiographical details about crime and violence with emotional honesty. Another writer for the New York Times, Michelle Marriott, noted in 1997 that his lyrics were not entirely autobiographical, as he had a talent for exaggeration to improve his storytelling and sales appeal. Wallace described his debut album, Ready to Die, as a big pie, with each slice indicating a different point in his life involving bitches and niggers from the beginning to the end. Rolling Stone described Ready to Die as a contrast of bleak street visions and being full of high-spirited fun, bringing the pleasure principle back to hip-hop. AllMusic noted a sense of doom in some of his songs, while John Perrells of the New York Times described a thread of paranoia in others. Wallace himself stated that he felt broke and depressed while creating his debut album. The final track on Ready to Die, Suicidal Thoughts, portrays a character contemplating and ultimately committing suicide. On his follow-up album, Life After Death, Wallace's lyrics delved even deeper, as observed by Rolling Stone. Crims observed that the record alternates between upbeat, dance-oriented tracks and gritty reality rap, reflecting a thematic shift toward a more pimp persona. XXL Mag noted that Wallace revamped his image between the two albums, evolving from a mid-level hustler on his debut to a drug lord on his sophomore effort. AllMusic credited Wallace's storytelling ability as a key factor in the success of Ready to Die. Legacy, widely regarded as one of the greatest rappers of all time, AllMusic described Wallace as the savior of East Coast hip-hop. The Source named him the greatest rapper of all time in its 150th issue in March 2002. MTV ranked him number 3 on their 2006 list of the greatest MCs of all time, calling him potentially the most skillful ever on the mic. In 2012, he was listed on The Source's Top 50 Lyrical Leaders. Rolling Stone hailed him as the greatest rapper that ever lived, and in 2015, Billboard named Wallace the greatest rapper of all time. Wallace's lyrics have been extensively sampled and quoted by artists across genres, including Jay-Z, 50 Cent, Eminem, Lil Wayne, Drake, Kendrick Lamar, Ludacris, and Kanye West. Tributes to him have featured prominently in hip-hop culture, such as at the 2005 MTV Video Music Awards, where Combs and Snoop Dogg honored him with an orchestral performance of his songs Juicy and Warning. At the 2005 VH1 Hip Hop Honors, a tribute to Wallace headlined the show. At the same show in 2016, Rich Homie Quan performed Get Money but faced criticism after forgetting the lyrics. Before he died, Wallace had begun promoting a clothing line, Brooklyn Mint, focused on plus-sized apparel. The brand became dormant after his death, but was relaunched in 2004 by his managers Mark Pitts and Wayne Barrow, with assistance from Jay-Z. Proceeds benefited several charitable organizations, including Christopher Wallace Foundation and the Sean Carter Scholarship Foundation. The Christopher Wallace Memorial Foundation hosts an annual black tie charity event, B.I.G. Night Out, to raise funds for children's educational resources. The acronym BI is repurposed to stand for Books Instead of Guns. In Brooklyn, Wallace's legacy is preserved through art and community efforts. A mural depicting Wallace can be found on Fulton Street, near his childhood neighborhood. In 2019, the corner of Fulton Street and St. James Place was renamed in his honor. Wallace's image and persona inspired elements of the Marvel Cinematic Universe's portrayal of Cornell Cottonmouth Stokes in the Netflix series Luke Cage. In August 2020, Wallace's son, C.J. Wallace, released a house remix of Big Papa. Biopics. Notorious is a 2009 biographical film depicting the life and career of Wallace, starring rapper Jamal Woolard in the lead role. Directed by George Tillman Jr. and distributed by Fox Searchlight Pictures, the film was produced by his managers, Combs, Barrow, and Pitts, and his mother, Valletta. On January 16, 2009, the film's debut at the Grand 18 Theater in Greensboro, North Carolina, was delayed after a shooting occurred in the parking lot before the screening. The film grossed $44.4 million worldwide, with a $20 million budget, and received mixed reviews from critics. In October 2007, open casting calls began for the role of Wallace, attracting actors, rappers, and aspiring performers. Beanie Siegel auditioned but was not selected, while Sean Kingston expressed interest in the role, though producers denied his involvement. Ultimately, Woolard was cast as Wallace, and Wallace's son, C.J., portrayed his father. To accompany the film, Bad Boy Records released a soundtrack album on January 13, 2009, featuring many of Wallace's prominent tracks such as Hypnotize and Juicy. Another biopic, the 2021 Netflix documentary Biggie, I Got a Story to Tell, explores Wallace's life before fame and features unprecedented access granted by the Wallace estate, featuring rare access and insights. It was executive produced by Valletta and Combs. Discography. Main article. The Notorious B.I.G. discography. Studio albums. Ready to Die, 1994. Life After Death, 1997. Collaboration album, Conspiracy with Junior MAFIA, 1995. Posthumous albums, Born Again, 1999. Duets, The Final Chapter, 2005. The King and I with Faith Evans, 2017. Media filmography, The Show, 1995, As Himself, Rhyme and Reason, 1997 documentary, As Himself, Biggie and Tupac, 2002 documentary, archive footage, Tupac, Resurrection, 2003 documentary, archive footage, Notorious, Bigger Than Life, 2007 documentary, archive footage, Notorious, 2009, archive footage, All Eyes on Me, 2017, archive footage, Quincy, 2018 documentary, archive footage, Biggie, The Life of Notorious B.I.G., 2017 documentary, archive footage, Biggie, I Got a Story to Tell, 2021 documentary, archive footage, television appearances, New York Undercover, 1995 as himself, Martin, 1995 as himself, Who Shot Biggie and Tupac, 2017, Unsolved, 2018.